So, Keir Starmer gave a big speech today talking about Labour's new policy on immigration. And it's all a result of Reform's massive success at the recent elections, although Labour will obviously not admit this. And it is interesting how far he's going back on his previous thoughts about how immigrants should be welcomed and they shouldn't be blamed for anything. Let's have a listen.
Let me put it this way. Nations depend on rules, fair rules. Sometimes they're written down, often they're not. But either way, they give shape to our values, guide us towards our rights, of course, but also our responsibilities, the obligations we owe to each other. Now, in a diverse nation like ours, and I celebrate that, these rules become even more important. Without them, we risk becoming an island of strangers, not a nation that walks forward together. So when you have an immigration system that seems almost designed to permit abuse, that encourages some businesses to bring in lower paid workers rather than invest in our young people, or simply one that is sold by politicians to the British people on an entirely false premise, then you're not championing growth, you're not championing justice, or however else people defend the status quo. You're actually contributing to the forces that are slowly pulling our country apart. So yes, I believe in this. I believe we need to reduce immigration significantly. That's why some of the policies in this white paper go back nearly 3 years.
Yeah, I'm going to stop it there. I mean, first of all, when he says he believes in this, well, bro, if you believe in this, why didn't you come up with the stuff before? Why wasn't this in the Labour manifesto when you guys ran for election? So, just like his view on trans women no longer being women, when he used to think they were women, um, I mean, he's just flip-flopping. And this isn't a principled view of Starmer's. He essentially is just going with the changing wind. And what's interesting here is I remember when before Brexit happened, UKIP did really well in the elections, and this is what led to the Brexit referendum. This is pre-2016, and the Conservative Party at the time panicked, and they started to sound off on about how they're going to crack down on immigrants, they're going to cap the number of immigrants per year, and such and such. And in the end, they didn't really do any of that. They did the opposite. And I'm getting that sense of deja vu listening to Keir Starmer here. It's the same thing. A more right-wing party has had some success in elections, and so the ruling party are now panicking because they think they're going to lose voters to this party. And so they're making these big announcements about cracking down on immigration. The difference, of course, is the Tories did see UKIP as a direct threat. I mean, it was kind of obvious from the start. But for Labour, it was less so up until this election because everyone thought it was the Tories who were going to lose to reform. But what the country has really shown and what the voters have shown, Labour and the country at large, is that actually none of the mainstream political parties are serving the interests of the people. So people talk about the uniparty, whether it's the Tories or Labour, you're just getting the same thing in government, and that's pretty much the case at the moment. So it's interesting to see him backtrack so much on his previous thoughts on immigrants, and yeah, it shows Reform are really making inroads into the Labour Party mindset, into their confidence, and I think this is going to alienate even more Labour voters. Like the hardcore Labour voters who still vote Labour, they're going to be alienated by this because the people who were upset about immigration have already left ship. They've already jumped ship to reform. So I don't think this strategy is going to work. And moreover, I'm not even convinced that the Labour Party mean this. I mean, let's just look at the actual policies that they're announcing now. Just put it up here. So just go to the top. I mean, okay, we're going to tighten the work visas to make them more skilled work visas. 10-year residency wait, that's a good thing because a lot of people were afraid that a lot of the immigrants who came in, the low skilled immigrants, illegal immigrants, would get residency within 5 years. Now that it's 10 years, that's arguably a good thing. Scrapping the care visas, stricter student rules. I mean, these two, I'm not as comfortable with these because the reason we were having a lot of social workers coming in to provide care in this country is because there weren't enough people domestically to do this job. That's why we were bringing people in. Stricter student rules, making it basically harder for overseas grads to stay in the UK. Yeah, okay, I get where this is coming from, but at the same time, the reason countries like America succeed is because they pull in talent from all over the world and they attract that talent through university, through jobs, and they make it easy for that high-skilled talent to stay in the country. And we seem to be just making it harder. But yeah, people have cheated the system to come in, so I guess that's where this is coming from. But to me, honestly, reading all of this, it just sounds like Labour are just trying to throw everything they think possible at this to make it look like they're being tough on immigration. But then at the bottom, it says no overall cap, which just completely defeats everything you read above. Why is that? It's because if there isn't an overall cap, then all it means is that people who want to come have to figure out how to game the system in order to get in. And if enough people can figure out a way to do this, well, then they can all come in because there's no overall cap. I mean, I remember with the Tories, when they were doing this whole immigration thing, they kept saying, okay, we're going to cap it to 100,000 per year, 100,000 per year, 100,000 per year. Of course, they didn't do that. But at least they understood that you need to have a cap if you want to promise that you're going to reduce immigration into the country. And I'm convinced that that's actually the right way to go about it. If you're serious about reducing immigration into your country, you have to cap it. Because why? You want to know how many people your country's going to have next year versus this year so that you know whether the public expenditure on public services is going to be enough for that, whether essentially the country is going to be able to cope with that. It's why governments make predictions about birth rates and death rates. And they should also make predictions about immigration. But the great thing about immigration is unlike birth rates and death rates, which you can't really control without taking away people's freedom, immigration is something you can control. You absolutely can control because you're not obliged in any way to any of the people who want to come into your country. So I think a cap is necessary. I don't know what the number is, but saying that there's no overall cap just makes no sense to me. And that's why I think this policy or these policy proposals ultimately are not going to work. Yeah, I saw this tweet um, earlier as well. Starmer smooths the way for Farage to become PM today. No longer possible to call Farage far right. And I thought that's such a good point, because that's the accusation the Labour group, the Labour Party, and all the fans have been leveling at Farage and the Reform Party for months, right, over a year now, which is that they're far right and therefore they're not worthy of a vote. Therefore, they should not be allowed into power. But if Labour are now cosplaying Enoch Powell and essentially adopting similar policy mindset, then they can no longer call Reform and Farage far right. Moreover, why would you vote for Labour if a crackdown on immigration is what you want? Why wouldn't you just vote for the real thing and get Reform in? Reform are promising to go much further than Labour in a much more effective way, like leaving the ECHR, repealing aspects of the Refugee Convention, so that we can really control our borders, which Labour will never do. They'll never do those things. That's a step too far for them. So I thought this was a very good point. And I think Labour are in a difficult position right now. Just going back to their plan, I mean, they're in a difficult position because they now have to they now have to explain to their base why they're saying all of this now, um, without admitting that it's just a reaction to the election results. But yeah, so let's see what tomorrow brings.